May 2nd, 2025. And of course, a lot of things are taking place in the world, including Trump ready to take on Harvard. So that is something that is going on in the world. Trump says he's moving to strip Harvard of its tax exempt status. So that is something that people are talking about in the news. And Harvard has hired conservative lawyer to fight the Trump administration. So we'll see where that goes in the terms of whether that is successful or not. Activists say ship aiming to sail to Gaza was attacked by drones. So drone attack on Gaza Freedom Flotilla ship. So Gaza humanitarian aid ship apparently was bombed by drones in the waters off of Malta. So that is something that people are talking about in terms of what was happening in the Middle East. And also in the Middle East, and Israel strikes near Syria's presidential palace in a message to Shura. So Israel launched their airstrikes near the Syrian presidential palace. So that was amid those sectarian clashes that are going on in that area. And apparently they were issuing a warning over Syria's treatment of the Druze. And apparently Trump blindsided Netanyahu, which is an Iran nuclear gamble. So that is something that folks are talking about, as there is a article in Fox News saying warning the Trump nuke negotiators about deceptive Iranian version of the art of the deal. So even the New York Post was saying a bad Iran deal is worse than no deal, Mr. President. And apparently the Cardinals are at a crossroads. While some want to continue France's reforms, others want a different kind of pope. So definitely an iconic chimney was installed atop Sistine Chapel ahead of the May 7th conclave, which will be taking place next week. Vatican firefighters installed that chimney on the roof of the Sistine Chapel for the papal elections. So we'll be having a new pope probably sometime next week or in a few weeks after that, because sometimes those conclaves can take some time. But we'll see what goes and how they pick whoever the new pope will be. Prince Harry loses the latest court battle over his security in the UK. So Prince Harry loses the court battle over security protection after stepping down as a full-time royal. So apparently he's lost some of that protection that he used to have before. And in Germany, the intelligence agency has labeled the AFD party as extremist. So AFD is classified as extreme right by German intelligence. So we'll see what goes on in there and if they maintain some power or lose some power, all in that space with this new designation. And Farage's Reform UK party wins the mayoral and parliamentary posts in a surge of support. So bruised Tories and Labour left working out how to tackle reform. So Reform UK surges as Conservatives lose seat and for local election takeaways. So folks are trying to figure out what that means in that part of the world, as we've got new leaders there also. And apparently there were warning signs that hinted at Spain's unprecedented power outage. So Spain's success in renewable energy may have left its power grid vulnerable. And I know that even yesterday, one of our founders, Nick Balveda, was talking about that. So we'll see if he's got any new news shortly and everything like that. So deprivation by design, Israel intensifies mass killing campaign in Gaza, and there's a backlash against the Israeli blockade of Gaza grows as 37 were killed today. So definitely that is something that is going on as the death toll in Gaza rises to 52,000, Territories Health Ministry says, as Israel continues its offensive. So Gaza kitchens are warning food running out after that 2 months Israeli blockade, and Red Cross warns Gaza aid efforts on verge of collapse. So definitely there's a lot going on in that space as far as things are going on there and as far as things are going on in that sense. In the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland judge and Senator Van Hollen pushed back against Trump administration over that particular case. So Marco Rubio and the Salvadorian president have been in touch about Kilmore Abrego Garcia, sources say. So apparently there are some conversations going on about getting this man released back into the United States. So Trump opponent judge says president's use of the Alien Enemies Act is unlawful in a first of its kind ruling. So the judge has barred the deportations of Venezuelans from South Texas under the Alien Enemies Act. So definitely in Texas borderland, Trump's immigration push suffers its worst legal defeat yet. And Elon Musk is out in Washington. Now he's building his own city in Texas. Apparently, he's got his own city that he's going to be putting up there in Texas. So I guess we're going to have Elonville or something like that. But I have to see what folks have to say about that. Maybe Nick's got some thoughts about Elonville when we come back and talk about that in a few minutes and get to a couple of other news stories as well. But apparently, he's out in D.C., but the home of Elon Musk. SpaceX could become an official Texas city called Starbase. So SpaceX's remote site on the Gulf Coast is poised to become Texas' new city. So Texas' newest city. So it looks like we might be having a city that'll be the Elon Musk city. I believe that Kim Basinger did something like that in South Carolina, or maybe it was Georgia, but I know she bought a town, and that was several years ago. I believe that was the actress Kim Basinger that did that, and I'm not sure whatever happened to her town, but I do remember that case and everything. Photos reveal Trump cabinet members use less secure Signal app knockoff. So late night watches Signal Gate claims a victim. So with another role in his portfolio, Rubio has ascended in the Trump orbit. So apparently he's got a better situation in that. And as we said before, married women face a real ID documentation hurdle since they are apparently supposed to have their not their married names, but their maiden names on the ID. And of course, that can be problematic and all along those lines. So if I'm remembering correctly, but I do remember that Kim brought up concerns about that, and other women that have been on the network have brought up concerns about that as well. So we'll see how this goes. And the S&P 500 futures rise. So I think that Milan, who does our modern investment, will be glad to hear that as China signals openness to trade talks with the U.S. So China is considering trade talks with the U.S., but it has conditions. So Wall Street points to gains as China considers U.S. overtures on tariffs. So China says it's open to Trump tariffs talks, and folks are saying what that means for Apple and Tesla stock. And apparently, Trump mocks trans athletes in women's sports to roaring applause at his Alabama commencement speech. So he gave the commencement speech at Alabama, and I think that both David Walker and Adam Lambarella have ties to Alabama, so they might have been glad to hear that he was there giving the commencement speech. But apparently, he mixed in some political digs as well in his commencement speech that he gave in Alabama. But yeah, he definitely made a crack at the trans audience or the trans people. And North Carolina auditor names election board members after a judge let law stand that they were fighting with. So GOP takes over the North Carolina elections board, boosting chances of reversing a high court race. So a woman and man among those chosen for the election board by the North Carolina auditor. So we'll see what goes on in that. And the House has voted to block California's plan to ban new gas-powered cars. So Senate GOP to bypass key rule makers on California's EPA waiver. So the House strikes a blow against California in a fight over EVs. So we'll see what goes on there. And the key Republican warning about a mega bill Medicaid fallout. So Mayor Bowser to call on Congress to preserve the D.C. Medicaid funding. And Republicans are weighing cuts to Medicaid that could dramatically affect millions. So we'll see what goes on in that space as well. And Japan is wary of China import surge, Finance Minister says, and U.S. cedes little ground on key tariffs in talks with Japan, Nikkei says. So Japan says trade talks are speeding up, hope for a June agreement. So we'll see what goes on in their way also. And Trump says he wants to rename Veterans Day to Victory Day for World War I. So like I said, he's naming a lot of things, but Trump declares May 8th as Victory Day for World War II, going to start celebrating our victories again. So he wants to change it from Veterans Day to Victory Day and all along those lines. And apparently after Canada, Trump could drag down conservatives in another election in Australia. So definitely Donald Trump is playing a role in some of these elections. He played a role apparently in Canada. Now he's playing a role in Australia, and we'll see what goes on in that space. And Ketanji Brown Jackson sharply condemned Trump's attack on judges. So she condemned Trump's rhetoric designed to intimidate the judiciary. So that's something else that folks are talking about as well. So, Illinois driver who killed four may have had a medical emergency, is what officials are saying now. So definitely, there's a lot going on in the world. I'm going to bring in Nick, see what he's got to say about this. If he's going to be making a trip anytime soon down to Elon Muskville and everything like that. But oh, by the way, last Vance says war in Ukraine not going to end anytime soon. Hours after the U.S. signs the mineral deal with Kiev, so he's basically saying the war will be going on for a while. So we'll see what goes on like that. And Stephen Miller claims Americans likely willing to pay more for U.S.-made dolls. And some folks, including those at the Washington Post, ask, is Trump waging a war on dolls? So Trump says U.S. kids might have 2 dolls instead of 30 due to the tariffs. So definitely we'll see what's going on in all of these stories and all of this stuff that's taking place. But I'll bring in Nick and see if he's planning to go down to Elon Muskville anytime soon, since Elon apparently has his own village.
Well, yeah, actually, you're right. Kim Basinger did buy Brazelton, Georgia, back in 1989. And if she held it today, it would be worth a lot of money because she had 2,000 acres for $20 million on the city. But, you know, cities in the middle of nowhere can be very, or even outside of Georgia, can be very unprofitable. In other words, there's not enough income to support the infrastructure. So she had to basically get rid of it. Now, let's talk about Elon Musk for a minute. Where did he make a lot of his money? Of course, he started with PayPal and was with the PayPal bandits years ago. And then he didn't really create the EV. He bought Tesla from a group that created the EV. But again, where did he get his money? He got his money from there. In Washington, D.C., what happens is they supported him. And this is the Democrats, so you guys can blame yourself because he had paraded around with climate change and EVs. They supported him in terms of, hey, we're going to build charging stations for you. We're going to give tax credits for your EVs, you know, and then the Republican, and then on top of it, they gave him contracts for SpaceX that bailed him out many times. So if you want to know who supported Elon Musk, it was Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, and they need to own that. You want to know what made him a centibillionaire? Was the U.S. government. In other words, it was getting these government contracts that basically saved his little hiney. And so he's basically a creature of Congress. So what he does next, I don't know. But will the government pay for it? Probably. The only question is how, because what he's a master at is being able to divert federal government funds and state government funds into his project, which is one reason I objected, even though Toby, who's not here to defend his worthless position, I objected strenuously to the government paying for charging stations all over the country because it flows into the pockets of Elon Musk. And I objected to Internet for All because, again, flows into the pockets of Elon Musk. But Toby just loves Elon Musk. And so hence, he's the guy that supports Elon Musk, so Elon Musk is definitely supported by the liberals, Mark. I don't know why they like him so much, but I guess they do. And so now he's going around chopping off all their jobs. Doesn't surprise me at all. Now, we do have 2 people from the University of Miami, myself and Peter Bennett. We have those Alabama creatures, Adam Lamplaro and David Walker. We also have another University of Miami, Kachoni Brown Jackson. Her father actually went to the University of Miami School of Law, which we have demonstrated that it is superior to Yale Law School because we actually believe due process is in the Constitution, where J.D. Vance and DeSantis, who I believe were Yaleys, couldn't find it. So I don't know. I just go, okay, why would we want to go to Yale?
Well, your buddy's here, Joey, so we'll see if he really likes or doesn't like Elon Musk. Because he's been Nick's been over here blasting Elon Musk and saying that it was the liberals that are the reasons for Elon Musk and that they supported Elon Musk and all along those lines. So that's what Nick's claim is. So he's saying that Elon Musk is a friend of yours.
Nope. So
then why do you support him? I was telling you not to support him, not support all his funding to his EV charging stations, not to support his internet for all, not to support his government contracts to SpaceX. And you were all behind it, Jacoby. And so you and the liberals made this guy, and now all of a sudden you disavow him because you find out that he doesn't like you anymore. I don't get it. Why did you change your mind?
So the issue with Elon, that had already started a long time ago. People wanted EVs. And what Tesla was doing at the time, because Tesla was the only player in the market at the time, and it was pretty innovative what they were doing. So people wanted that technology and wanted the investment in that technology. It became a leader in that technology. Elon didn't create Tesla. Elon just bought Tesla because it was the leader in that market and the only piece in that market. So people, yes, wanted that. And yes, a lot of liberals, a lot of Democrats, a lot of conservatives, those individuals that wanted that EV market were pushing that. They weren't pushing internet for all with Starlink, not at all. They were pushing internet for all because it was a broadband network. Matter of fact, the people that were leading that were AT&T, Verizon, and actually Google, because they were the ones laying the fiber lines and everything else. So that's a different story. So that had nothing to do with Elon. In terms of going to space, it was because there was a lot of cutbacks, because many of the things that we actually enjoy today are because of the advancements in space technology and the technology that happens in space. We're sitting here talking on the internet. We're calling each other on the phone. You know where that goes to? That goes to space. There's a lot of technologies that come off of that. The actual clothings and things that our military and police use, that came from space technologies. I mean, just that research itself in terms of cancers and so on, and understanding that's space technology. So putting money and funding there is important, but that got cut from NASA. And the only thing that came in and helped out there was, yes, SpaceX. Again, Elon does not know space. Elon did not design, create, or do anything with space. Elon bought the company. So he bought Tesla, he bought SpaceX. So these are companies that became necessities. And so people like that. But in terms of Elon, the man himself, people began to turn on him a lot because of a lot of the things in his history started to pop up. And a lot of the things that he has said began to pop up. And then once he became a more prominent figure and more of his sayings and more of his things that he did, for example, when he took over Twitter, when he bought Twitter, and this goes an example of how he runs companies and how they actually go down once he runs them, per se. Twitter was in a crowded market. Twitter ended up losing value once he purchased it. Twitter also, once he purchased it, anti-Semitic tweets, racism, and a whole bunch of other things that were banned up under Twitter's laws spiked up under when Elon Musk took it over. And that became a problem, and people hated that. And then he wanted to defend that. And then he wanted to promote different things that were untrue. And so people turned on these things more and more, the ones that did not know. And so that's where that's where the problem with Elon was. And it truthfully started before before Trump, because of who he was. But once
I have to say
that way,
this is
the world according to Jacoby, but he's got a different view of the world.
Well, I want to ask Adam a question as well, but Adam had a statement. But I guess I'll ask the question.
This is a special show because I am thrilled that I came onto the show to see Jacoby thanking Elon Musk for cutting $160 billion of waste from the government and for all of his contributions to humanity. Jacoby, I agree with you, and it's glad to see that you believe that we're going to make America great again.
Adam, he didn't cut anything.
$160 billion, and it's going to continue. And I think I'll tell you, I'm glad that you're for democracy. I'm glad that you're for doing what's right. And your speech right now inspired me, so thank you.
So
the version of history is correct. The liberals made Elon Musk. They made him billions. They made him billions for
party of the rich now.
Tesla. They made him billions for EV. They made him billions for SpaceX. They made billions. Joe Biden had a blank check over to Elon Musk. And so what happens is they made this guy a centi-billionaire. And then the minute they found out he isn't for the liberal causes, they turned on him like a snake and bit him like a snake. And by the way, we did not want EVs. This is the world according to Ditovi. I didn't want an EV to save my life. I've never had an EV. I have a very efficient car. It's a Toyota Avalon, which I sold recently. It is better than your stupid EVs and your stupid charging stations and your stupid liberal agenda that you're trying to.
I do
corrections.
Don't want your.
Ditovi deserves credit for praising Elon Musk.
Thank you for creating Elon Musk.
A few corrections, real quick. Just a few corrections. Adam tried to say that, oh well, he cut 150. Well, the man came in saying that he was going to cut $2 trillion. He couldn't do that. Then he cut back on whatever. Then he said he was going to cut $1 trillion. Couldn't do that. Then he was going to cut whatever. Now we're going to do 150 million. 150 billion. Couldn't do that. Cut back on that.
Why are you apologizing because you admire Musk? I agree with you. What's the problem?
All of his numbers that he said that he was going to cut, he couldn't do. He actually spent more than he actually cut. And then on top of that, the budget that they are trying to push out right now is going to cut even more stuff in terms of these things that we need. For example, hold on. So you are for, because you just said good, you are for cutting the drugs that the EMTs use to fight overdoses, which has saved thousands of lives.
Yes.
You are wanting to cut that to increase the death count.
Yes.
Okay, so you're for death. So
I'm not for death. I'm for cutting it. I'm for cutting them because guess what? They rarely ever work. And you know what?
No, incorrect.
Stop doing drugs. Okay? Stop relying on the government to save you. Cut it. Cut.
You've established that you're for death. Now, in terms of the things for mental health,
we're all going to die.
In terms of mental health in school for kids, there was another, I think it was like a $41 billion. No, actually, it might have been less than that. But there was a chunk of money that was going to kids to deal with mental health in schools, which helped kids in schools.
Yes.
So you are now wanting more kids to have mental health problems and cause more school shootings.
I want it cut because it doesn't work. Because it is totally effective.
Proven again, Adam. It's been factually proven to work, but Donald Trump, because he is that he is saying whatever he says, and then people say, okay, like you, cut it, which leads to more death.
No, it doesn't. Okay, so things don't work. That's the reality of it. They don't work.
The reality of the situation is,
you agree with me too. I don't think you disagree with me.
I just gave you the reality and the facts.
No, you didn't give me any facts. You gave me your opinion.
The EMTs and the EMTs, EMS, the whole emergency medical system that goes out and saves these individuals' lives. Donald Trump is cutting that program. Also, in terms of Black,
we already have the supplies needed to save lives. You're not getting into the details.
Research. So all these things that you're saying cut lead to more deaths in our society.
I don't believe they lead to more deaths because they still have the supplies needed to deal with overdoses. They are funding it excessively.
Really quick, to correct Nick on the Elon Musk situation. Again, Elon with EVs was the only player in town. Elon dominated the market with Tesla because Tesla dominated the EV market. Yes, EVs were taking off. Infrastructure is what's needed for EVs to continue to take off. Like the regular combustion engine, there are gas stations on every corner. Therefore, it's easier to fuel combustion engines, and it makes it simple. Oh, the fact sheet. We pull the fact sheet from a liar. So we took the quote-unquote facts from the man.
Rest in peace, PBS.
This is the White House speaking facts to your liberal philosophy. Now, this is really good. It's called Ending Bias. of media and taxpayer subsidization. This I've been screaming for years. It says NPR and PBS receive tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer funds every year, primarily through the Corporation of Public Broadcasting. And I know that's true. And not only that, they pay themselves millions in salaries. And it's all subsidized. This is awful. So this finally, it's an order ceasing federal funds to NPR and PBS. It's about time.
Thank you, Nick.
Wait.
They don't like Americans. They don't like our programming. They don't like you, Jacoby. They only like their little group, and they all make over $1 million a year. It is disgusting.
So wait a minute. Don't we have somebody that regularly appears on PBS on our network? Because I think that Steve Rao regularly appears on PBS. So you can't say they don't look at our programming.
So here's a quick question, though. Also,
we're making America
They
help.
don't pay them, or they pay them nothing. Mark, the people that are making money is the president of PBS, the vice president, and Jacoby's never been to the meetings. I've been there twice. They snub Americans. They don't even like us.
Nick,
They buy all their programming, almost all their programming from the BBC.
Nick,
This is one of the most disgusting groups in the country. By the way, I donate to them because I like their programming. But at the same time, the American taxpayer should not be subsidizing these jerks.
He's 100% right.
Let me
I
ask
thank
you.
you, Adam.
Let me ask you a question.
If you want to donate,
Joey's got a question for you,
that's fine. But American taxpayers should not be subsidizing these multi-million-dollar
Nick,
salaries.
Would you shut up, people? You drive me crazy.
I got a question.
No, he interrupts because he knows he's wrong, and all he can do is scream.
Nick,
There was a question for you from Jacoby.
let me ask you a
Go ahead.
question.
Defend the defenseless.
Question. Now, Nick,
Nick's
now,
100% right.
the White House, or actually the federal government, do they know the exact amount of money that is given to NPR and PBS?
The White House now?
They do. They do. Adam, thank you. Thank you.
It's in
So-
the millions.
What did they write in that first sentence?
Okay.
No. Wait. Counsel.
No, you need to listen.
Please,
You don't even understand how money laundering works.
What?
Here's how the
did
money
they
is
say
laundered.
in that
Don't
first
know.
bullet?
Listen to Nick.
The money goes from the federal government to
Wait.
the corporation.
Why
called
will
the
you not
Corporation
answer the
for Public
question?
Broadcasting, and then from there it goes on to
Mark,
PBS.
Judge Mark, will you please,
It is the most disgusting
ask
thing
the
that
hostile
every American
You
should
read
be.
it.
Yeah, hold on a second.
Including you.
What is the first question of the sentence? In
You
the,
might
that first bullet
mind your manners.
What is the first bullet point?
It says they end the taxpayer subsidizing of biased media.
I said the first bullet point.
It says today, President Donald Trump signed an executive order ending.
That is not the. I said the first bullet point.
Oh, NPR and PBS receive tens of millions of dollars in taxpayer funds every year.
Thank
through
you.
the CCP.
So, counsel. Now, we already agree that the White House or the government itself understands and knows the amount of money that is given to PBS and NPR. But in that first bullet point, they say a very vague, generic number because they know people like yourself will jump up and down over some random talking point because they don't want to actually give the actual amount that they put out there, because what the golf excursions that Trump has gone on is more than.
I don't understand your point at all.
That have to do with this, counselor?
Your point is
You're deflecting the issue.
Hold on a second.
You're not listening.
Is the issue in front of you? Don't talk about the golf game.
Hold on, Nick.
Please. Why don't we talk about the football games?
No,
It has nothing to do with the issue in front of you, counselor.
Nick, it's Jacoby. Hold on.
You and Adam have talked
You
about
can't defend it, so you
fraud
talk.
and
You can talk about hockey.
100% right.
and Adam have both said waste.
Nick is bringing reason and logic to this
You
discourse.
and
Yeah.
Adam have
See,
both
see, Adam, what I
waste.
deal with, and this goes on every day.
You guys won't-
His friend Johnny the Liberal,
Correct.
and I forgot
Yeah,
the
you're
other
gonna
guy's name, the
defend-
Liberal. They all
So
deflect.
again, the
Yeah.
amount of money
They
spent
can't defend their
on
position.
trips
No,
is
the more
more
they
than
talk, the less
the
they
money
think.
spent on NPR and PBS. Yet
Okay.
again, this is
Then
why
stop
they say
talking about golf
tens of
games.
millions when they know the exact number. They don't want to put that number out there because it's easy for you two to come up and, hey, we're going to say all this extra money. But you forget he spent
Jacoby,
over $20 million on golf trips
you
alone.
began this show by praising Elon Musk, and now you've relapsed.
When did I
What
praise
happened?
him?
What does that have to do with NPR and PBS?
Irrelevant.
Taxpayer
When did I
funds?
praise him,
I don't get
Adam?
it.
You're throwing
You know,
stuff.
let's talk about hockey, Jacoby. I mean,
Well,
come
we
on.
can get to the hockey in a second and everything, but I did have a
But
question
again,
for both of you. Hold on. I have a question for both of you because he did something else that I'm still trying to figure out, and maybe y'all can help clarify it for me. Because apparently there are two major holidays that have been out there for a while, and I guess he wants them to go back to their original names or he wants to change them, and I'm still trying to figure out why we're doing this and everything. Because Veterans Day has been Veterans Day forever, or at least a long time, and now Trump wants it to be Victory Day because of celebrating, I guess, the
it is
victory in
extremely
World War
offensive.
I and everything, and he doesn't want there to be Indigenous Day because that's the same day as Columbus Day, so he wants it to go back to being Columbus Day. So these are executive orders as well.
is
So some of these
Columbus Day.
executive orders I'm trying to figure out because he just seems to do random executive orders that don't really seem to have any purpose and everything along those lines. So what's up with like us changing Veterans Day to Victory Day?
It's extremely offensive.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Who said?
To celebrate victories we had and
I
celebrate.
don't know why this is offensive at all.
Here's the question: do Vietnam vets matter? They weren't in World War One, but you're saying that we should not honor the Vietnam vets now.
We are honoring the Vietnam.
No, we're not. You're saying you want victory.
No, it's just this particular.
Victory Day. We didn't win Vietnam. We actually lost Vietnam.
Yeah. So the vets in Vietnam.
They have Memorial Day.
I'm sorry. So Memorial Day is about death. Veterans are alive. So you're saying that we don't celebrate the people that went to war for us in Vietnam?
Well,
I got it. Again, Adam, you like death. We've already established that.
Victory Day encompasses celebrating our
Incorrect.
military for their victories. It is not
Incorrect,
in any
Adam.
way
We already
implying
started.
that we're not celebrating those who fought in war.
Incorrect, Adam. Incorrect. You're
That's
saying
perspective bias.
The only
He
reason,
specifically said World War One. He did specifically say
Adam, I
World
know
War
the
One.
he
reason.
said
Because
World War
Trump
One.
came
That
up with
means
freedom.
Vietnam vets mean nothing. That means
No,
Iraq
you
vets
know,
mean
if
nothing.
he said
Veteran that is
All the
not.
audience needs to know is that
He's not even
Jacoby's
celebrating
offended at
veterans.
Victory Day. That
He
tells
is
the
not
whole
even
story.
celebrating
I got it.
We
veterans.
thank our veterans for their service.
Again,
I got it.
Adam,
Thank you for your service.
you're
And thank
defending
you for that.
you.
Hey, here's another thing from the fact sheet. This comes from Washington, D.C.
World War.
Donald Trump is
No, but
protecting
those veterans put their lives on the line for you. Show
Criminal
the respect to our
aliens.
veterans.
This is
You're not
important.
celebrating. You're taking away. You're taking
No, they're not
away
taking away anything.
honoring of the veterans to celebrate what?
Oh,
What
no,
do you
you,
celebrate?
you probably think that a man who thinks he's a woman is a woman too.
Now you're just making stuff up,
No.
Adam, because you can't defend it.
It's irrelevant. But here's another thing. This comes from the White House. That's your White House. It's a fact sheet, so we know it's the facts. Donald Trump is protecting the American communities from criminal aliens by cracking down on these illegal sanctuary cities, these cities that snub the law and say, we can go ahead and violate the law. It's okay. So he signed an executive order to enforce federal law with respect to sanctuary jurisdictions to prevent
Who's going to enforce that?
Here's the problem.
protect their citizens from dangerous aliens. I'm sure you would like that.
But how is he going to enforce that?
Let me explain why. Let me explain why this is a problem. Now, we do have undocumented workers in our country, correct? That's a yes. Now, because we have undocumented workers in our country, and this administration is starting to militarize even
those illegals,
which is what they did in Florida, because they federally deputize people into ICE so they can go after these individuals. So these undocumented workers normally would be able to go to the police themselves if a crime were committed against them, if they saw a crime, or they were able to report something wrong. Now, when you do situations like this, who can they go to?
They can go right back to Mexico and on a first class flight on Delta.
So Adam, just to push back on that. So just to push back on that. So an undocumented worker, which happens all the time, sees a car accident and somebody dying on the street. They can't report it.
Okay, so my view.
An undocumented worker sees a woman being raped. They can't report it now.
Well, my view.
Undocumented
Sure, they can report it, and then they report themselves. And they leave the country. Honorable thing, Toby.
Call 911 and you say, I don't want to give my name. Someone's being raped. Get the police over here.
Okay, So you're
You
thinking
report it and
that
then you report
undocumented
yourself for
worker
being illegal.
who,
and you leave.
based on you, must get deported just for even reporting.
Yeah.
No, I
It's
have a
called
very
integrity.
view on
Hey,
immigration.
and hold on a second, Nick.
I
Nick,
tend
I
to
had a
be more
question.
moderate on immigration.
Hold on a second, Nick. I have a question for Adam, and it's based on what we're talking about. I have some friends that are this coming Saturday, so tomorrow they will be having a boxing match, and all along those it'll actually be in our state capital and everything. It is being organized by some Latin American and African American boxers and everything like that. So in my mind, they need to be concerned that they could be rounded up and be checked on their identity and everything like that. Is that a hyperbole on my case, or is that something that they need to be concerned about? Because, like I said, I
Are
know
they here legally or illegally?
a boxing match and everything. I mean, the boxing match is at a legal venue, it's a dirt
I
arena
don't-
and everything like that. But I am concerned that they could be literally rounded up according to
Well,
the way
I
that
don't
we
think
got it
that
up
they
in
should.
people now.
I don't think that they should be. My view on immigration is, if you're an undocumented worker who's working here, who has a family, who hasn't been convicted of a felony, I'd give you a path to citizenship. But we also have to secure the border. So I would limit deportations to individuals convicted of felonies. I don't think breaking up families and going into neighborhoods and rounding up people who are productive workers of the community is a good thing. There has to be some compassion.
Why?
Because they're
what is this? You know, if they broke the law, they would actually get on a plane and leave. I don't get this.
No, they're
You know, I don't get why this is okay. It's not okay.
I know,
You
but
know?
the harm and the trauma that you would do to these people who are otherwise working, they're not criminals. I think it's okay to say path to citizenship for them. I just feel that I just have some empathy in that regard. I don't want to see a family with kids crying their eyes out getting deported.
Why would they cry? They get an opportunity to leave the United States. It's not a cry. There's a lot of great countries.
very
to
cool
do
to do that.
Thrown into a
I don't know why you guys think America is such a great place to live. You guys are full of yourselves. You know, some of the countries they came from are really great, and some countries like Spain are wonderful. So if they have a chance to leave, I think you should give them the opportunity to leave.
But in that same regard,
I don't know why you think
in that same regard, there are two countries in Africa that, not just El Salvador, but two countries in Africa that Trump has said that he wants to send our folks that have been kind of like immigration abusers and everything like that too, that aren't necessarily from those countries, because he's been talking about sending them to Libya and Rwanda. Libya and Rwanda are definitely have their own issues in terms of human rights. He's actually said that he wants to send them to Libya or Rwanda, and they might be from Venezuela or El Salvador. So why is he sending them to
narrow-minded American?
I think we've got to have some compassion here.
Go look up Rwanda. Rwanda is safer than the U.S.
I'm not breaking up a family in Arizona like Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
You guys think America's
too harsh. Give these people a chance. If they're law-abiding citizens, give them a chance towards citizenship. You know, you got to have some compassion.
No, they should leave.
But Nick, why would you send them to a country they don't have any knowledge of? I mean, that's like the whole notion of El Salvador, but you're going to send them to Rwanda and Libya.
Yes, these are two really
Libya
great.
is where Muammar Gaddafi was
I
at.
have problems with it.
Nick,
You know, you guys don't know Rwanda is one of the safest countries in the world right now.
It's too
why
harsh.
would you send them to a prison just for crossing the border?
Because they broke a law. Do you have a problem with that?
You would send them to a prison that
Did they break the law?
Even
My question is, did they break the law?
Nick,
Yeah or nay?
Okay, you know,
Did they break the law?
that law is just is tantamount to like a speeding ticket.
No, I don't want to listen to what you think it is. Did they break the law?
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
I'm just asking the question. Did you break the law, counselor?
Well, I think
Can you say yes or no? You want me to do that all the time?
Nick is right that they've broken the law by coming into the country, but I think our focus should be on removing individuals who have been convicted of crimes while here, and that's a lot of people to deport, and we should deport them.
Hold on. We all agree, and see, that's the gaslighting piece. We already all agree there are individuals that have committed crimes, and there are individuals that should not be here, and that should be deported. So even starting off as if you are the only one that is for this is gaslighting in itself. So we already agree there. Now, Nick, I've already shared something that is on the screen in the background. You can pull that up right now.
Well, Jacoby, not everybody agrees with you. The mayor of
From
Boston
the White House.
Let me finish. Because we're already at a base level that we agree on. So reiterating it, trying to make it as if, again, that you're the only one, that's not true. So then once we get to the actual actions of what are taking place right now, of grabbing people who have crossed the border and then just sending them to a prison and somewhere else, that's wrong. That is something that we should agree on too. What happened to this Oklahoma City family is the norm right now, is that people who are brown, they're going in and just throwing them on their lawn and saying, okay, you got to prove your citizenship. This is the problem where we are right now. But no, what we're sitting here doing is gaslighting, saying, well, and this is another problem that's going on with this administration, because right now this administration is trying to demonize and make every immigrant who has crossed the border into a terrorist. Why? So they can do things without due process. Even though the Boston bombers got due process, they don't want the people who are brown to have that. They're just shipping them out. So when we get back to when we talk about this, it's not about the protections of murderers and this and that. That's a problem. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about due process. And as an African American who, historically didn't have that due process right for a while, and still goes into situations where that due process right is not there
because due process
executioner that has happened in many minority situations.
Due process really isn't necessary here because the law is self-executing. If you've been here illegally, it's a fact. There is no due process. There's no defense.
If you are here illegally, do you get due process?
I believe you get some due process, but you don't get a lot of due process because it's a self-executing law. You either are here illegally or not. There's no need for
Adam, as a constitutional lawyer, are you provided due process based on the Constitution? And Nick, you're a lawyer as well. You can
get due process. Yeah. Yes. But
yeah, they're entitled to due process. I don't have any problem with that.
But
I do have a problem.
The process is due, and the process that's due is not the same as a criminal trial because the law is self.
We're not talking about a criminal trial. We're not talking about a criminal trial.
Well, they get due process. They do, but what you're missing is this. Look at every other country around the world.
We're not talking about every other country.
Immigration policy as horrible as ours?
Doesn't matter.
No,
that doesn't matter.
And for good reason.
Matter at all. That doesn't matter.
He's right in that regard. We have to secure the border.
It doesn't matter about every other country. You're bringing up some emotional piece. If we are afforded due process based on the Constitution, then why are you talking about other countries?
I'm saying we give them due process.
So then we're done. Then what Trump is doing by not giving these individuals due process is wrong.
How do you know he's not giving them due process?
He's not. The judges have already proved that.
What judges? Do you mean judges in liberal jurisdictions? Judges in liberal jurisdictions have determined it's not enough process.
Did a Trump-appointed judge just shoot down the idea of the the Alien Enemies Act that Trump has been used?
That's irrelevant to the notion of due process.
Due process. That was a Trump-appointed judge that just did that yesterday.
That's irrelevant to your argument. And
no, it's not. It's very relevant. He used the Alien Enemies Act to just ship people out, claiming that he did not give them or not providing these individuals due process. Hence the reason that you had the case go to SCOTUS, because there was that one judge that actually pointed out that he would like for them to prove that Mr. Garcia he was the one who was trying to get Mr. Garcia back, because they did not prove, one, he was an MS-13 member, two, that he also proved that he was not supposed to go to El Salvador. So
right, if he got no due process, that's again,
right. They have not received due process, counselor.
If they didn't get due process, that's a problem. The question then is the remedy. Do you order them shipped back for due process where they'll get deported again? Fine if you want to do that. But 99.9% of individuals deported get due process. It's a fact they don't get as
No, it's
much
not.
process.
Not under this
Well, we're
administration.
arguing about
Well, they can get due process in El Salvador. These countries have their own laws. And now I'm going to go back to Rwanda because Mark slammed the African countries. I don't know why he doesn't like Africa. Rwanda is the
Africa, but Rwanda
Oh,
has
Nick,
these issues.
you're now
country
making
in the world.
so Nick,
Rwanda is safer
Nick.
than the United Kingdom, which is 89. Rwanda is safer than Spain, which is six times more safer
Nick,
than the
your
US.
argument is irrelevant.
Which is
as
87
Adam
and
pointed out.
89 is the US UK. So when you're saying going back to Rwanda, you're going back from
Not going
a
back to
country
Rwanda.
that
I
is
didn't say
United
going back to
States
Rwanda. I
is
said
dangerous.
people that
You're
are from
coming to
Rwanda to
you're not
Rwanda.
making an
Rwanda.
They're not
argument.
going back to Rwanda.
Going to Rwanda
Nick,
is a
Nick,
great
they're not
idea.
going back to Rwanda. They're being sent to Rwanda. They're not
Yes,
from
they-
there.
They're not
Yeah,
from
there's nothing wrong
Rwanda.
with
They're
Rwanda.
sending them
Rwanda
there.
is
It's
one of the safest
basically
countries in the
it is
in the world. It's
trafficking
ranked
of
25th. Go look
human
it up.
individuals.
I don't know why you guys don't like Rwanda.
It is
Look it
trafficking
up. Get your facts straight.
It
It's
is
a
trafficking
great place
people.
to go.
They're not from Rwanda. They're shipping them to Rwanda.
You know, Joe Biden
What's wrong
created
with
such a
that? That's
mess.
what I'm getting. They're
created
being
a mess.
upgraded to go to Rwanda. It's much safer in the U.S., even safer than Spain.
And individuals.
Also, let me point out. This is
They
the
should
other
be
poor
happy.
This
argument
mess
that you
didn't
have.
start with
This
Joe.
is the other poor argument that you
I
have.
know it's
It's anti-African.
You just came in and tried to blame the problem on
Republicans and Democrats.
you tried to blame the problem on Joe Biden. Let me point out to you, Barack
Biden's
Obama,
wrong. There's no problem.
he actually deported more people than Donald Trump did. Biden did as well, actually. But Barack Obama deported more people than Donald Trump did at this time.
Poor
Barack
Michelle.
Obama was labeled, hold on,
Wait.
wait, Adam. Barack Obama was labeled as deporter in chief. People were upset at the amount of people
Yeah,
that he
you're right.
deported. And
You're
you
right.
know what? You know what? He gave them all due process. He didn't use the Alien Enemies
What
Act.
I'm saying is that they
he
get
did not-
the process.
He
You're
did
overstating
not
the
send
problem.
people to an El
Obama.
Salvadorian prison that he had a partnership with.
You're talking about
For
one
the
person.
Rwanda area,
99.99%
to
get
have
due
a
process.
partnership.
It's a fact.
You're missing what's really happening.
We're
Last
talking
year-
about
Last year, there were
And
147,000
process.
illegal crossings. Now there's 147. And why
Well,
did
and
it
you're
drop
talking
so
about
radically?
thousands
It's
of
because they
lack of
realized
due
the U.S. is not a
process.
They
great
get due process. They
And,
get
And
due
you know,
we
I
got,
wanna
hold on, we
know-
got Kim
I
here. We
wanna
need to hear
know-
from Kim.
I want to know what happens to their assets and their money. Because the minute you yank them like this and kidnap them and traffic them to other countries, which
We're
is
not
what this
trafficking
is
them.
without due process, where's all their assets and bank accounts going?
Well,
And where are the women
hopefully
and
they kept
children
them in their
going?
home
Because
country.
we can kind of keep up where the men are going to an uncertain death. But where are the women and children being sent? Because I just got notice from some people that the human sex trafficking is on the rise with children from America. So I am just real curious
I told you
about
it's not a safe place to
the
be.
reason and
why
purpose
you
for
guys
lack of due
look at it.
process, lack of identifying and tracking where people are going. And, you know, again, where are the assets going? Because, you know, the men, the leaders of this world did this and utilized an ancient old law from England when they decided they wanted to condemn women of being witches. Why? So that they can take away their property and assets.
Well, if you're a member
So
of
go read
the
history.
Alien Enemies
Go
Act
read
should
history.
apply.
When you read history, you'll know this is true. But you know that those men did this to the women so that they could take their money and assets. And so where's the money and assets from all of this going?
Do you think that the Alien Enemies Act should apply to members of MS-13?
Do you have
You
to
know
prove
what? I
somebody is
think
a
that
member
we
of
need to
MS-13?
make sure we do due process
Yes, you could do
to
due
everyone and
process, and if
anyone.
they are, yes, they
Assuming that someone is guilty of something is not the way our justice system was designed. Okay,
Well,
assuming.
we do give them due process.
So we
Hey,
need the due
what does
process.
Trump say?
You know
What
what?
does
How
Trump
many
say?
people have we sent wrongfully to their death, like all the witches that you men condemned? How many people were sent wrongfully to their deaths because of lack of honest due process?
Well, first of
No.
all, when you say you men, you're kind of gendering the conversation.
Okay,
and-
I
Adam,
did
before we go
gender
down that
the
route,
conversation.
before we go down that
I
route, let me point
appreciate
out
it.
I did it on
Not-
purpose.
Yeah.
Real
But
quick,
men
real
did
quick.
this
because
to
you brought up
women.
some
I'm
random
saying the
tangent.
men
Adam,
did this
People
to
due
women
process
to take
and
away their
consider that
property.
The act applies if they're MS-13.
Adam,
So we're not getting.
Adam,
That men did this
Adam,
to
you
women.
keep
You
saying
guys can keep
we are
cutting me
giving
off.
Adam. Hold
Go
on.
ahead.
You have repeated a lie, and right here, you have said we're giving them due process. Nick just took the screen down, but it literally says that Donald Trump says that we don't have time for due process.
Okay, but
So
I
when you're
agree with you.
saying- wait,
I
Adam,
agree with you.
Adam. So that means that we're not giving them due process.
We're not doing
No,
We
that.
are
I'm
literally
saying
not
to
doing
the
that.
extent
And
that a
Donald
judge
Trump is the
finds
one
that
saying
due
we're not
process
doing
has
that.
not been given, that is wrong. And
The
So
that-
minions are
admit
breaking
Donald
down
Trump is
innocent
wrong.
people's doors.
yes, if
And-
Donald Trump is not giving due process, he's wrong. Yes.
So then,
And they're-
why are
they're
you
not
arguing
doing
with us,
anything
telling
right.
us that we're giving them due
Because I'm
process?
saying that in the
No, we're not.
overwhelming majority of cases, they do get due process. That's
Adam,
what I'm saying.
I legitimately have just showed you that Donald Trump himself is saying that we're not going to give them due
He's
process.
not saying this across the board. He's saying for particular individuals, and that is a fact. And
He's
that's my
shipping
argument.
them
It's,
out
you're
on
overblowing the
boats and
problem.
ships. Again, Adam, you're coming up with this fantastic.
Not to mention, guys, I
I
don't
give
know what
you the
due process
reality, and you're
is
denying
considered.
that. That is
Well,
where we're having
he
a
said-
real
he said he's an immigrant.
just to point
Either
out,
did or you
just to
didn't.
point out again, we're not giving these people due process. When
Well,
you
why
brought up
don't you show me
again,
the article?
hold on, Adam, when you brought up again saying that, oh, MS-13s, I just asked you legitimately, do you have to prove that they are MS-13 members? Yes, you do.
I said
And
you
they
should
have
give
not
them
done
due
that in a court
process,
of law.
but that
They
the
have not done
idea
that.
that every illegal is not getting due process is not true.
Adam,
The problem is
Adam,
not as big as you. That's
Adam,
my point.
Adam,
You disagree
when-
with it? Fine.
Adam, you cannot bring up an MS-13 thing talking about Mr. Garcia when that has not been proven.
I didn't say Mr. Garcia. I said MS.
So then you randomly
he deserves the due process.
Okay, so then you're on our side. when
We
we're
don't
talking
know
about
who's
Mr. Garcia.
MS-13. until
Yes,
you do
he
the due
deserves due process.
No,
And
you-
if
So to
due process
prove
is
that
not
they're
given,
part of these
problem.
gangs,
If
all
you
I'm
do the
saying
due
is that it's
process,
not
then you'll
happening
get the
nearly
right
as
people.
widespread as you think.
incorrect, Adam. I just showed you a story where they threw a
You
family out of
showed
their
the story
lawn.
from
Hey,
Yahoo.com.
I know that was disgusting. That was
But yet
disgusting.
you're-
What's next? Oh my
You're-
God!
Well,
are they gonna
speaking of that, hold on a second. Speaking of that, because I mentioned it
Well, maybe
to
you should-
hold on a second.
Horrible.
Hold on.
Oh my
I mentioned
God.
it to
It is
Jacoby
horrible. It
and
is
Kim. I do have
horrible.
one other
Kim,
thing I
Kim,
wanted to bring
relax.
up
I mean,
from earlier this week.
relax. It's not.
And I did want to
They're
talk
gonna
about the
start
process.
dragging people out in the
Totally
yard and start
overblown.
shooting
No,
them.
speaking of overblown, I did have a quick question. If you know that you're breaking the law as a form of protest, should you be condemned or praised for that? Because we do have a minister
Well,
from
what
this
about
area,
Trump? He broke
a
the
minister
law.
from this
Can we
area,
ship
Reverend
him
Barber,
out?
who was praying on the steps. I think it was the Capitol Rotunda and
He's
everything. And even he said that he
convicted.
knew he was going to be arrested, just like he knew he was going to be
Convicted.
Allowed
arrested
to
for Monday
protest,
and
but you
everything.
can't break
But
the law.
Huh?
You should be allowed to. For example, if you're pro-life, you should be allowed to protest outside of an abortion clinic, but you shouldn't be allowed to go up to a woman entering the clinic and holding a sign on her face saying "Don't get an abortion." That's not right. So protest, but within reasonable parameters.
So, in terms of, I mean, yes, protests will
Yeah,
always break.
J6ers were criminals. They should
Yeah.
be in prison for
They were
life
not
and
criminals.
deported.
Most of them were not criminals.
They should have been deported.
So,
Why would you support them?
I mean, criminals are criminals, right? Like,
I don't-
why,
I mean,
you know,
with
and-
protests,
I mean, they were
What
kind
about
of
the
stupid. I don't mind.
Americans
I
who
wouldn't
are the-
mind throwing them out of the country, but they.
but with protests are always set to, they cannot live in a world where it is palatable, because if a protest cannot be palatable. A protest is meant to draw awareness to a particular thing.
You
There should
don't let
always be
somebody
action
go up
behind
to a woman who is going to have an
No.
abortion and stick
I'm
a sign in
not
her face
saying-
and say, "Don't enter the
Adam-
abortion clinic." You don't
Adam,
do that.
Adam, I'm not saying that.
Well,
what I'm
there has
saying
to be
is-
reasonable restrictions, Jacoby. That's why. That's my point.
What
about
protests
the
do,
people
and
who
even
blow
that
up
individual that
abortion
does
clinics
that,
and kill the
Even-
people that are going to abortion clinics? What
even
about them? Are they criminals?
They should be thrown in prison.
Thank you.
Adam, even the individuals that
Not
get
case.
it, that really come close to you. They don't touch you. That's what I hate to say it, but that is honestly, they're right. That's what
I don't think you should be allowed to hold the
Wait,
size of
let me
an
finish what I'm
aborted
saying,
fetus
though.
in front of a
Let me-
woman 5 feet
finish
away from her. She's
saying,
going to
though.
a clinic.
Let me finish what I'm saying, because even with the First Amendment itself, it protects people from. It protects those calling me the N-word the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's totally wrong.
But
Totally
that's
wrong.
what freedom of speech and freedom of
But
protest
when
is.
you
It should not
when you
protect that word.
invade
But the
a
thing is,
space-
once they get to a particular place, you do. And Adam, you're a lawyer. You know, you can push, what is it, civil restraints or civil.
Toby, I am not a fan of the court's First Amendment jurisprudence. I do not believe that racist speech should be permitted. I do not believe sexist speech should be permitted.
get that.
I don't believe that any of that shit should be permitted.
I'm not
I think it should be criminalized.
either. But
You
again,
call someone the N-word, you should be in prison for 10 days for doing
again,
that.
I'm not a fan of these things either.
Because
They
people
are
kill
horrible.
themselves because
They're
of bullying. They kill themselves.
But again, there is a freedom of speech, and if we are not
in New
going to
York.
protect that, then
Come see me.
it sucks. It protects not only the speech that we don't like, but the speech that we do like. So we have to be able to watch that.
I don't agree with I agree with protecting speech you don't like. I don't believe in protecting hateful,
Well-
racist slurs that harm people and cause people to kill themselves, like calling someone a fag when they're in 8th grade and they jump off the roof of their middle school.
Yep,
I
I
don't
believe
believe
the
that.
person that did that
I
should be
believe
arrested
our
and
senators
put to
in
jail.
Congress should
I
get up
mean,
off
again.
their butts and stop complaining about all this nonsense
What?
and do something about it. I mean, all I hear every day is they're doing this, they're doing that. Okay, get off your butt and do something about
Well, there
it.
was
That's
a number
why
of
we
people.
hired
Hold on a second. There was a number of people that did stuff.
Marjorie
Yes,
needs to be fired, though. She hasn't
but there
made
was a
any
number of
money
people
for
that
our
did stuff.
country.
There was a number of folks that did stuff yesterday. 'Cause the group 15501, I think I said that right. 155001, 1551, and everything. They did a series of protests around the country, including Durham and Raleigh and everything. I actually ran into some women that were bringing up the immigration issue when I was catching the bus back home, actually going to work yesterday and everything. But there were several protests on May Day, because May Day is seen as a Labor Day as well, like a union supporting holiday and everything. So there were protests throughout the country.
Well,
So what did you say, Adam?
There's nothing wrong with
I
that.
didn't see any in New York. That's sad. I'm up here all week and I didn't see
What I do have
any
a problem with, though, is
protests.
the protesters at Columbia who are spouting anti-Semitic nonsense on campus. I don't believe in. Why does the First Amendment protect speech that absolutely hurts and traumatizes people that has no value? Why?
And Kim, I know there was some
So,
big.
freedom
I
of
know there
We
was
have
some
a history
big
of
cities.
discrimination in this
Yeah, we
country.
do.
A
We
history of
definitely do.
racism, sexism, homophobia, and you're allowing that shit?
No, freedom of speech protects the speech that we like and we don't like.
I don't.
Also,
I'm not that. Not
Freedom
that
of speech. Freedom of speech does not protect you from consequences from those speech from that.
I'm
I know
going
that-
to tell you guys
So
right
therefore,
now, he who wins the war
Toby,
gets to
I-
write history books
I would ban.
and
I
say
would
what
ban.
your speech is. That's what we're living today.
I believe in
whoever's our
censorship
leader.
of some speech.
And I
Our
wish
leader is hateful.
for me,
Yeah, I
I
believe
wish
in
that
censorship of hateful speech.
For
But
me,
Mark,
I wish
what
that
were
speech
you
would
saying about
disappear
New
and
York?
I wish it
I
would
said
go
I'm
back
not
to the
sure about
outskirts.
New York protests, but I know there were protests in big
Right.
cities.
I
Because
see what
know
you're
there were
saying,
some in
Toby, but
DC and other places.
I
I thought
wouldn't
New
actually
York was in there.
abandon uttering those words.
Well,
You
me
said
and I'm
New
going
York
to go
crime.
house shopping up
Again,
here.
Adam.
I've got a house to go see, so everyone stay healthy. So you
Enjoy
stay
New
well.
York.
Are
I'm
you- are
having a
you-
blast.
You're
Yeah,
looking to
I'll
move to
be
New
there
York
soon.
now?
What?
You're looking
I'll
to
be
move
there
to New
soon.
York now?
No, I'm looking at properties.
Oh, that's cool. Cool.
So,
Can you buy me an
just-
apartment on Fifth Avenue, 1 bedroom on Fifth Avenue and 10th Street? I'd love it, right by Washington Square Park.
Well,
I'll be
actually, I found this 6-bedroom house on the corner
One
of a
1.5
beautiful
million.
neighborhood in Brooklyn
Adam,
that is
1.5 million.
absolutely gorgeous, but it's been abandoned.
6
for a couple-
bedrooms.
So I'm looking.
What is it,
Yeah, they're
$100 million?
dropping the price. So
That's incredible.
yeah, it's a gorgeous 6-bedroom, old, very, very old but beautiful, well-kept corner with nice parking lot for your guest and you, and a big, huge courtyard. And,
Yeah, but Kim,
but
that's
it's
going to
just
be a
been
lot of money.
abandoned for a long time. Nobody's been
abandoned.
able to buy it. So
And then,
Yes.
and then Toby can set up his gaming center
How
up
the
there
hell
in
did
New
you
York
find
as well.
that?
And on that
What?
note, and then Jacoby gets up his gaming center in New York as well. And then on that note, we get ready to get out of
Yeah,
here.
that's what I mean. It's huge. It's big, and it's in the center, in the heart of Brooklyn, over here in Dyer.
Are you gonna buy it?
Diker. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I
Good.
went to the
Hello.
Morgan Museum, J.P. Morgan.
I got some news for you, but I have to call you back in 2 minutes.
Wow, that is the most beautiful museum I've ever seen.
Bye.
Books, but just like when you walk in, you smell the binders. It's so beautiful if you haven't seen it. The history is amazing. I'm going to share some of it with you, Mark, because I think you can appreciate it. And Jacoby, it's just absolutely amazing. The reason too is because, you know, places that collect books like libraries and stuff like that, they are for, you know, people to use, to enjoy, to appreciate, kind of like what Jacoby is doing with his gaming programs for people to learn, to use, to appreciate. You know, a book is the friend that never changes.
Yep.
And when you read it once and then you read it again, it's still the same words. It's still the same book. It's still your friend that never changes. So, but there's just so many things to see and do. And I just realized that when I just kind of step back, take a deep breath and look around, that there are just so many other things.
No, New York and Miami.
But we need to get this. I will tell you this. I'm visiting with some people from other countries. And someone brought an attention to me that they noticed that New York is not the happy, jumping, everybody buzzing place anymore since Trump. And she didn't bring up Trump. She didn't say Trump. But she comes here quite often. And she said, you know, it's like everybody is, you know, going to work and rushing home and just closing the doors. People aren't going out and doing things and spending money probably. But she said, it just seems so unhappy right now.
Yeah.
And I said, it is. Everything's very unhappy right now. So
one of my friends lives in New York City, and he's gay, and he told me that like a lot of women sometimes will look at him and give him dirty looks and say like fucking Trump supporter. They don't even know. So I told him my advice was look more gay.
Do what?
I said look more gay, and then
there
we'll
you
have
go.
problems. He's like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, well, they think you're a white male. And they think you're a Trump. So I said, you know, look a little bit more gay and you'll be absolutely fine. And he called me an asshole.
I mean, I do not want to wear anything red. I do not want to wear a red hat ever again. But yeah, people are really on edge right now. It is on it. And it's funny because I've been coming up here for years and I see the difference as well. I felt that tension. I'm feeling it. You know, previously it was, you know, the door, you know, oh, come look at the fruit, shop. Now everybody's staring everybody down. It's sad.
It's a different environment, but there's also, as Nikki is, there's a lot of expats, because I know on the online dinner party, I actually had two. One that used to own a nightclub in Reno, and it was a very successful club, but he now lives in Mexico, and I can't remember whether it's Mexico City or where in Mexico, and he's in the whole food insecurity fight and everything like that. And then there is the other woman who is a shaman, lives in Panama. So she moved her and her husband to Panama, and she's been to 40 countries total, but now they are living in Panama. So there are a lot of people that are opting to do like Nick did and moving to other countries because they're frustrated by what's going on here and everything like that. But we're going to end this show and everything. Jacoby, just really quickly, what's that guy's name that's in New York that was on the Gamers Den regularly? But he was one of your regular participants, but he was in Brooklyn, I think. But he was also fighting like homeless and all of that kind of situation. But he was a regular on the Gamers Den.
Oh, Jahan.
Thank you. How is Jahan doing before I end this show?
Oh, he's doing pretty good.
Good. Cool.
Doing pretty good.
Good. On that note, I'm going to hit this little intro button, and we're going to get on out of here. We'll be back on, today is Friday, so we'll be back on Monday with more conversations around the news, and we'll see who joins us on that day. Hopefully Adam will be back with us again on that day, and of course Nick will be singing the praises of Spain and the anti-praises of EVs and everything like that. But we'll see how this show goes on next week as well. So right now we're going to get on out of here. And last but not least, I guess the Capitals will be taking on the Canes this weekend. So I think that series starts this weekend. Am I not correct, Jatovi? Does it start Saturday?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea when that starts.
Okay, I'm not
They
sure.
haven't announced anything.
Okay, well, hopefully it'll be starting soon because that'll be the Canes' next road to the to the Stanley Cup, which hopefully they can make this year. But on that note, we're getting ready to get on out of here.